Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I am up. Coming a little bit later today. We had something to handle. It's a husband and wife. Alright, good. I'm seeing myself moving and shaking. And check my sound. And we can get this show on the road. So coming tomorrow, I have Laura Steiner. Now Laura Steiner is the woman, I guess you could say, the star of that article that I read about the resistance inside the DNC. Like all of the stuff that was taking place on the DNC that we did not know about because we weren't there. She was. And that was such an interesting story. So she's going to be here. She's going to talk about that in addition to just politics in general. So that should be pretty damn interesting. Pretty good interview. So there are a few things I want to talk about today. For this particular one, this one is going to be specific, and it's going to be something I saw. I wasn't originally going to do the story. I was going to do a story based on this kind of identification of false flags, how to do it, how to steal yourself from it as much as one can steal themselves from it. At the end of the day, you're always ambiguous. You're always looking, down from below, up at something. So, but that's in the next video. On this video, this I found massively interesting, and so I'm going to do this particular story. Do you guys remember this? And I'm pretty sure if you're watching this, I'm pretty sure you do. But let's take a look at it again.
And of unconfirmed videos.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
Did it have anything to do with your visit?
No, I'm sure it did. They're going to be captured or killed.
Democratic Jewish state between Israel.
I don't really care about the second part. I care about the first part. We came, he saw, he died. Yes! Yes! They put a machete in his rectum and killed him. Yes! This is so awesome. I'm Hillary Clinton. That's also the devastation of a man. I understand that Kadhafi may not have been the best guy in the world. Now, the United States had no issue working with Kadhafi, nor did the Western powers in this case. Had no issue with working with Kadhafi and other times. But in this particular time, regime change was on the agenda. Hillary Clinton was in the State Department, and she was pushing for it, and Obama went along with it, and they changed the regime. Good job. The mission accomplished. Now, what they used as a justification for this was Kadhafi was going to kill his own people. Kadhafi was going to become a sadistic maniac and go on a rampage, coked up, running through the streets with a machete. In order to stop that, in order to steel ourselves against that, as the Western powers, to prevent that from taking place, we will use our bombs to save people by bombing the shit out of them. That's what we're going to do. And they accomplished that. They actually did get Kadhafi out of power. Here's the thing. The original reasoning for that was this. Well, the reasoning was, we're doing this for civilians. We're doing this to help people. You're using your bombs to drop bombs on people in addition to paying terrorists to undermine the Libyan government, creating this idea of a protest and an uprising. Well, that was something that you yourself ginned up, and then you use the justification of that to bomb. This was politics. Let's take a look at the reason why, though. Now, they said it was humanitarian reasons. WikiLeaks. Hillary Clinton helped topple Gaddafi while France and the UK fought over Libya's oil. Doesn't that sound more like reality? Clinton bragged about the United States' role in Muammar Gaddafi's death, and her email leaked by WikiLeaks showed the race to claim Libya's resources in the aftermath. This had nothing to do with humanitarian reasons. This had everything to do with getting their hands on the resources of Libya. Gaddafi had a massive amount of gold reserved they wanted to get their hands on. And there was a rumor that Gaddafi was talking about creating a pan-African currency, and the United States wanted to break that up and not necessarily allow that level of consolidation of Africa. Whether it's true or not, the main case that is true, it's somewhat as a flat fact, is that France, Britain, and the UK used their military power to crush and kill Muammar Gaddafi, using uprisings in addition to air power. The uprisings gave the pretext, meaning we need to protect humanitarian causes, with the air power finishing blow in this way. It was a stitch-up. Humanitarian reasons was a fig leaf that they used as a pretext to go into Libya in order to get oil reserves and resources. Here's the thing. Today, there's slave markets in Libya. Oh my God, there's slave markets in Libya. This woman.
Land of unconfirmed.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
Did it have any?
She says it with such glee. She says that with such glee. There are slave markets in Libya. Her laughing and giggling in that way. That's the happiest I've ever seen Hillary Clinton in my life. Honestly, that's not hyperbole. That is the happiest that I've ever seen her in an honest moment of happiness. We came, we saw, and he died. There's slave markets in Libya. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that awesome? That's fucking amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yes, there's slave markets in Libya. And Hillary Clinton is chest thumping about how awesome it is. Just to be clear, there's a part of this that I want to read before I get to the actual story. I just wanted to give the context to which that actual story is taking place. In March 2011, NATO launched a war in Libya expressly aimed at toppling the government of a longtime leader, Muammar Gaddafi. The United States and allies flew some 26,000 sorties over Libya and launched hundreds of cruise missiles, destroying the government's ability to resist rebel forces. United States President Barack Obama and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, along with their European counterparts, insisted that the military intervention was being carried out for humanitarian reasons. But political scientist Micah Zinko used NATO's own material to show how the Libyan intervention was about regime change from the very start. NATO supported an array of rebel groups fighting on the ground in Libya, many of which were dominated by Islamist extremists and harbored violent racist views. Militants in the NATO-backed rebel stronghold Misrata even referred to themselves in 2011 as the Brigade for Purging Blacks, or for Slaves of Black Skin, an eerie foreshadowing of the horrors that were to come. The war ended in 2011. United States and European aircraft attacked Gaddafi's convoy, and he was brutally murdered by extremists, sodomized with a bayonet. Clinton, who played a decisive role in the war, delivered live on CBS News, "We came, we saw, he died." The Libyan government dissolved soon after. In 6 years since, Libya has been roiled by chaos and bloodshed. Multiple would-be governments are competing for control of oil-rich country, and in some areas there's still functioning central authority. There is still no functioning central authority. Many thousands of people have died, although the true number is impossible to verify. Millions of Libyans have been displaced, a staggering number. Nearly 1/3 of the population had fled to neighboring Tunisia in 2014. Now, this article is making the point that they're trying to whitewash NATO's role in this. You can't whitewash NATO's role in this. The United States, France, and the UK were the major forces in this particular conflict. Let's keep going. And today, French ex-President Sarkozy held in Libya financing probe. Well, that's interesting. Why would Sarkozy be held in a financing probe? And why is Sarkozy oddly and weirdly holding the hand of Muammar Kadhafi, the guy that Sarkozy eventually ends up assisting in the murder of? Let's take a look. French ex-president Nicolas Sarkozy was detained for questioning on Tuesday over allegations the late Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi financed his 2007 election campaign, including with suitcases stuffed with cash, a source close to the inquiry. Suitcases stuffed with cash. Let's keep going. Is there any reality to this? Sarkozy, 63, was taken into police custody early Tuesday morning. It was being questioned by officers specializing in corruption, money laundering, and tax evasion at their office in the western Parisian suburb of Nanterre. I can't pronounce that. I'm sorry. He was still there late evening and under French law can be held for 48 hours. He was the president of France. Imagine a situation where Barack Obama is being taken into custody. Imagine Hillary Clinton being taken into custody for questioning for 48 hours. AFP sources said Bryce Hortefeux, Oh, man, I'm sorry, these names. I'm horrible with names. AFP's source said Bryce Hortefeux, a close ally and senior minister during Sarkozy's presidency, was also questioned on Tuesday. The case is France's most explosive political financing scandal and one of several probes that have dogged the right-wing politician since he left office after one term in 2012. Since 2013, investigating magistrates have held probing media reports as well as statements by Kadhafi's son Saif Islam that claimed funds were provided for Sarkozy's run at the presidency. Sarkozy must first give back the money he took from Libya to finance his electoral campaign, Saif told Euronews Network in 2011 as NATO-backed forces were driving his father out of power. Sarkozy has dismissed the allegation as the rantings of a vindictive Libyan regime member who was furious over France's military intervention in Libya that helped end Gaddafi's 41-year rule and led to his death. I hate it when they do that. It's not a regime. It's a government. It's like the American population. Look, if you ask the American population, what do they think of Congress? What do they think of Democrats? What do they think of Republicans? What do they think of the House, the Senate, all those things? What you would find is that America has like a 10% approval rating for Congress. Think about that. Congress has like a 10% approval rating. Now, we're calling this a regime. It's a government. We don't necessarily like that government. We think it's a repressive government. It is a repressive government, but it is a government nonetheless. Give it the respect that it deserves, or at the very least the same respect that you would expect. I don't have to like their government, but it's none of my business. I don't need to be part of that particular process. That's their government. If they want to change that government, if they wanted to make it into something else, they make it into something else. I don't need to play a part in that particular episode. That's the first point. Call it a government. Stop downplaying it. Stop making it look like something else. I mean, my reasoning for this is the language itself allows a certain way of negating the negativity that takes place. Meaning, if I call it a government, it looks kind of bad that we toppled a government. If I call it a regime, well, that looks a little bit better. That sounds a little bit better to me. They're using words in this way, and it's kind of slippery terms, but it's a certain amount of propaganda built into the way the stuff is phrased. That's all. I just hate when they call it that, because it's downplaying it. Again, this is not me thinking that living under Gaddafi was fucking awesome. No, I don't think that at all. Gaddafi was a dictator. And yes, Libya might have had some positives, but Gaddafi was a dictator, so it's not like I have love for Gaddafi. It's the basic and simple point that we should have nothing to do with it. We destroyed that country. They have open-air fucking slave markets. Do you believe that our input in that country has been a positive experience? Let's keep going. It's like calling a regime somehow makes it a little bit better that they destroyed the country. It's not better. He has also sued Mediapart, which has led media coverage of the Libyan allegations since 2012, publishing a document allegedly signed by Libya's intelligence chief showing that Gaddafi had agreed to fund Sarkozy to the tune of 50 million euros. The case drew heightened scrutiny in November 2016 when Franco-Lebanese businessman admitted delivering 3 cash-stuffed suitcases from the Libyan leader in 2006 and 2007 as contributions towards Sarkozy's first presidential run. Jesus Christ. In an interview, again, with Mediapart, Ziad Takindin claimed he dropped 1.5 to 2 million euros in 200 euro and 500 euro notes each time and was given the money by Gaddafi's military intelligence chief, Albana Senussi. When asked about the allegations during the televised debate in 2016, Sarkozy called the question disgraceful and said the businessman was a liar. That's my French accent. Sacre bleu. The legal investigations look into the allegations as well as 500,000 euro foreign cash transfer to Sarkozy ally Claude Guénet and the sale of a luxury villa in 2009 on the south of France to a Libyan investment fund for an allegedly inflated price. Sarkozy's lawyer refused to comment, but Gant's lawyer Philip Abouche El Gouzi told AFP there are no elements in this case that justifies a spectacular measure like custody. After 5 years of investigation, they haven't been able to prove that Nicolas Sarkozy received even a cent from Libya, he said. I'm sorry, dude, that looks bad. I'm not saying he's guilty. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying he's guilty. He's going to trial. But that looks really bad. That looks really bad. Hey, you should be like Bill Clinton, man. Do a speech. Let him pay you $500,000 for a speech. That's the way to do it. That's the way we do it in America. Our bribery has a fig leaf associated with it. So you can always go to the fig leaf and say, see, my balls aren't out. See, I have nothing to hide. I have this fig leaf. Let me say it this way. Getting suitcases full of money, not the best way to do it. Not the best way to do it. If you're going to get bought and if you're going to get bribed, there are better ways to do it. Talk to the Clintons. Open up a foundation. You can launder all the money that you want. Sarkozy, who takes a hard line on radical Islam and French identity, was nicknamed the bling bling president during his time in office for his flashy displays of wealth. He failed with a bid to run again for president in November 2016 and has stepped back from the frontline politics since then, though he remains a powerful figure behind the scenes at the right-wing Republican Party. I'm going to leave this here so you can read through it. I found it interesting. Apparently, Sarkozy has a few things. Investigating magistrates have recommended Sarkozy face trial on separate charges of illegal campaign financing over his failed 2012 re-election bid. The prosecution claims Sarkozy spent nearly double the legal limit of 22.5 million euros on his lavish campaign using false billing from a public relations firm called Bimelian. He faces up to a year in prison if convicted, but it's appealing the decision to send him to trial, claiming he knew nothing about the fraudulent practices that Bimelian executives have admitted to. Now that one, good job. You always let your law firm do it. Never get your hands dirty. At the end of the day, you can always turn around and say, I had no idea that law firm was doing that on my behalf. I had no idea. No idea. I'm very contrite. And I apologize on behalf of the law firm. But I had no idea that the law firm was doing it. As long as you can always point to a law firm, will have multiple middlemen on the thing, you can always kind of claim this level of stupidity or incompetence. Look, this looks bad. I have no idea if Sarkozy did this. They're going to, I suspect, either recommend for trial or at the very least let him go. But at the very least, they clearly have their suspicions if they're holding him into custody for a day. And let's be honest. We know that the political leaders of these countries are entangled with certain elements in the Middle East, like dictators or whatever. Hillary Clinton was getting a ton of money from Saudi Arabia. I mean, and to be honest, part of the Russia thing is such nonsense. If you're looking for things that have influence, Israel would have influence in our politics. Saudi Arabia would have influence in our politics. Russia? I mean, I can even believe Turkey to some degree before I believe Russia has any influence. So, and by the way, Hillary Clinton was also using the Russia thing, meaning Rostam was also trying to influence democratic politics, again, using a law firm in order to funnel money to the Clinton Foundation. My point to this is, look, they destroyed a country. Sarkozy maybe, potentially, got magnificently wealthy off doing so. Or at the very least, got magnificently wealthy of the person that they eventually killed and destroyed. They had no issue working with Kadhafi at one point. They turned and flipped on a dime and at that point undermined that government, destroyed that government, changed the regime in that government. And come to find out that the person who they killed, who they thought was perfectly okay dying by being raped by their machete, may have actually financed the campaign of one of the people who was responsible for killing that same person. It's weird. It's very weird. But am I shocked by it? Not in the least. Not in the least. It doesn't shock me one iota. Because, yes, they're taking money from these guys. Of course they're taking money from these guys. Hillary Clinton got $1 billion. I mean, to run her campaign. Now, how much of that money was funneled from other sources through law firms that may have came from some third-party source? I mean, think of all the money that the Clinton Foundation was getting from Saudi Arabia, and just so happened, Saudi Arabia gets all these weapons deals. Now, Saudi Arabia is not the place that has the best degree of human rights. Do you honestly believe they're given to the Clinton Foundation because they care so much? They can park that money into any charity they want. They're parking that money into the Clinton Foundation because they know, at the very least, her being in the State Department, it gets influence. Gets influence. Let's see. We have people here today. I wasn't sure anybody would be interested in this particular story. I found this story interesting. I mean, think about that. They had no issue working with Gaddafi on their own terms. Then at some point, something changed and they were like, yeah, let's take his ass out. And they have the cables that these guys are talking back and forth about taking out Gaddafi. A lot of this was done over oil and gold. Oil and gold. And they wanted a different person in that country, or at the very least, they didn't want Gaddafi as to be ahead of that country. That place has slave trades right now. That place is slave trades. That is the fault of the United States, the UK, and France, directly responsible for what's taking place. It's amazing. Stephanie Chattel. Hey, Jamal. What's happening, Stephanie? It's very interesting because it connects Hillary Clinton and Trump again with Mercer, Koch brothers, and Podestas. And the CIA is trying to bully France. You know, the CIA hacked into France's election thing. I mean, they're screaming at the top of their lungs about Russia. They better look into the CIA. That's the part that weirds me out on this. This is why I don't trust this. It's the selective justice stuff. Edward Snowden comes out, shows that the CIA had been spying on everybody, including foreign allies. Not a peep. Germany bitched a little bit, but at the end of the day, not a peep. And all of a sudden, everybody at the top of their lungs in all of these countries screaming at the top of their lungs about Russia. It seems like they have different rule books. It seems like they have very different rule books depending upon the person. Uncle Torino, please hit the like button and support Jamal and Progressive Soapbox. Aw, thank you, Uncle Torino. Thank you, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Bill O'Reilly, open air, out in public slave trades, yes. Yes, open air, out in public slave trades, yes. This is kind of why I keep asking this. I mean, look, whether you're right wing, left wing, somewhere in between, I don't care where you're on the political spectrum. Do you honestly believe that our influence in that region of the world has been positive and effective? Not what the news is telling you. Do you honestly believe that that has been positive and effective? Has the kill list gotten any shorter? For every terrorist, quote unquote terrorist that you think that you kill, because on the way, this term terrorist is relative. You are terrorists in their country, bombing their country. They are terrorists from the standpoint of the United States. The designation of terrorist is only dependent on who the person is, the opposing person in this case. Anybody, fundamentally, can be a terrorist if they're acting against your particular interests. The state uses these words in these kind of slippery ways. Fact is, we're bombing multiple countries. Think of all the civilians that we've been killing. Thousands of civilians. That number has skyrocketed with Donald Trump. You honestly believe that for every civilian that you kill, you're not creating another terrorist, quote unquote terrorist? We are creating our monsters. And these monsters, by the way, are not just being created over there. Those monsters are getting in boats and they're sailing across into Europe. Because all of those refugees who are fleeing that part of the world and that are fleeing into Europe is destabilizing European politics. Marine Le Pen, some of these right-wing people who were there in these countries, why do you think they were able to come to prominence in the way they would come to prominence? People pulled to the right. They wanted control of their borders, and they didn't necessarily like this idea of all these people coming in from all of these other places, from these war zones. We are destabilizing politics, not just in the Middle East, but also in Europe. Do you believe that our presence has been positive? I ask that because whatever your political affiliation or ideologies, we've spent $7 trillion. We've been going into one country after the next without the constitutional justification to do so. Meaning there is no international law, nor is there an American law that has given the president authority to go in all of these countries. That was Obama and that was Trump. Neither one. They do it nonetheless. Either the president is a king or the president is a president. And we need to make a determination on which one he is. Congress needs to be called to account. That's what it boils down to. The United States has over 800 bases throughout the world. No, we are intimidators and instigators. Yeah. Bullies. Yeah, we're bullies. I will always, it's like, do you Does anybody really remember the school bully as being the good guy in the whole thing? Like, think about it. Like, of all the attributes that you have, for all intents and purposes, the thing that you excel at is putting people in prison and killing. That's sure. Those are the things you excel. You don't have the best healthcare, don't have the best education, don't have the best colleges, don't have the best schools, don't have the best any of that stuff. For all intents and purposes, we spend $1 trillion. If I say, what are the things that you like to do? And you show me your budget. Show me your budget. I can tell you the things that you care about and the things that you like to do, the things that you believe in and the things that you espouse and express. I like to travel. If you look at my budget over the years, you will probably see a lot going to travel. That's something I love to do. What does the United States budget look like? Where does all the money go? Where does all the money go? And if you had to make the choice in how the money was spent, would you really want to continue to spend $1 trillion being a policeman of the world, or do you want to attend to the affairs of the country itself? If we have that much money to spend abroad, cut the shit in half, spend the other half here on infrastructure and spending and making sure people have the things that they need. They manufactured $80 billion out of thin air. Now, don't get me wrong. Money is not real in the first place. It's somewhat of a fig leaf that they use to get shit done. But it is one of those fig leaves where if you can manufacture it out of thin air in order to give it to murder and kill, then it looks like you could have also manufactured it to make sure people had a home, people had things to eat, that certain jobs were being built, that infrastructure was being secured, that bridges were being secured. I'm talking about priorities, and I'm talking about values, real values, the things that you care about, the things that you believe in, not the things that you have to tell me. You don't have to tell me that you're deeply progressive. Either I know it or I don't. Either I know it or I don't. Yeah. Trump has even stated $700 billion military bill is problematic. Context in press talks today remarkable. No kick rocks hard bastard. What? Hey Jamal, what's your thoughts on left-leaning Scotland leaving the UK? Do you think we should leave or stay or support Corbyn? Because I am stuck as to what to do. Because will Corbyn last forever? I am fascinated by that dynamic, by the way. So, I don't know how many people pay attention to British politics. And Scotland has gotten pissed off because Britain is leaving the UK. I mean, Britain is leaving the European Union. And Scotland has made a determination to have a referendum. Now, this is amazing because Scotland has already just had a referendum, what, like a year or so ago. And so, Scotland's thing is, we made a referendum, we made a determination that we're going to stay in the UK. Great, the world is good. We chose to stay in the UK by referendum. Great, the world is good. The UK has a referendum and chooses to leave the EU. Leaving Scotland to be like, what the fuck? The wild part about this is, if you're looking at Parliament, PMQs, you can see the frustration on the Scottish National Party, the lead member of that particular party. Not this current one, the one before this guy. He used to, every day, every PMQs, he would get up and just be pissed off and frustrated, and every question would be about Scotland leaving the EU. It was the funniest shit you've ever seen in your life. Because I felt so bad for the guy. He'd get up and he'd be like, that screeching, howling prime minister who's getting us out of the EU. And he would be so pissed off. Oh man, I don't live there. I cannot comment. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I mean, do you believe that your fate in Scotland will be better with the European Union as opposed to being with Britain? I mean, that's fundamentally the question that you're asking. Like, look, it depends. Like, so here's the thing. Let's be honest. Yeah, let's be honest. So here's the thing. The issue with Scotland and the issue with Britain in this case, you have somewhat of a right-wing government in Britain now. Now, the European Union has certain standards that force Britain, meaning those trade deals and everything else, the regulation in order to interact with the single market. There's certain deals that you guys had to make. There's certain rules that you had to follow with regards to products and everything else. So there's certain like pollution standards. There's certain things like fishing standards. There's standards that these guys need to uphold in order to interact with the single market and be part of the EU. If you guys are out of the EU, those standards go away. And you have a conservative government. And that conservative government may take this opportunity to try to fuck over labor, fuck over environmental regulations, and essentially cut taxes to some ridiculous amount. Like, That's the problem with this, or that's the fear with this, that Britain is going to end up being some kind of bottom basement, corporate shop at that point, because the conservative government has changed one law after the next, in regards to worker protections and everything else. Like, they could turn Britain into this kind of European hell state, or literal America, in this way. Now, Scotland, if it doesn't necessarily want to be attached to that, may try to pull itself into the EU and get accustomed to the single market. But by that token, Scotland at that point, what I would imagine, would have to rip itself from the UK in order to do such a thing. And is Scotland better? Are they better suited with the European Union, with Germany, again, right-wing government, with Germany, with the way Germany has been running this country? Like, for instance, do you believe that Greece had somewhat of a good go of it? And I have to be honest, I have this feeling that the EU is going to try to punish Britain for leaving. They can't let Britain get a really good deal, because if they let Britain get a really good deal, other countries who run into conflict with the European Union may be inclined to also leave, thinking that they're going to get somewhat of a decent deal. It's somewhat of an incentive for the EU to somewhat punish Britain in this way. I don't know. I honestly don't know. So yeah, Paul. They want to be like Singapore. Over 80% of Scotland is pro-EU. It doesn't rhyme in the UK stance. Yeah, it's fascinating to me. Like part of the reason that she's trying to pull herself out of the UK in this case is because, like, show frustration of these guys leaving the EU. Scotland did not want to leave. And yeah, the Scottish National Party would continuously get up there, and that's the only thing they would talk about over and over and over again, was talking about, we don't want to leave the EU. We don't want to leave the EU. Then Nicola Sturgeon is on this campaign of trying to pull them out of the EU. The Tory member inside the Scottish, I guess you can say inside Scotland, was taking shots at her, trying to keep her in line with the Tory government or keep them connected with Britain. It's fascinating to watch. It's absolutely fascinating to watch. The question becomes, do you believe that they're better served with Merkel than they are with going with the UK? If they have an election, if Jeremy Corbyn wins, I would say you're better off with the UK. If Jeremy Corbyn does not win, that's a different question. You're going to be with the conservative government. I don't know. I can't give a decent, thoughtful answer. I think before the EU, we were all war people, forget. Well, yeah, you guys were. Yeah, I understand. I mean, people were terrified that they were going to end up in a war again. I mean, keep in mind, you guys had just had one monster war, World War I, then another monster war, due to the factors being, you guys tried to punish Germany, and it wasn't fully Germany's fault in World War I. World War II, yes. World War II, that's all Germany. But World War I was not all Germany's fault. And you guys tried to punish Germany and make Germany into bad straits and whatnot, and at that point you guys kind of created a monster, and Germany responded poorly to that. But that being said, you had two major wars, not to mention then you had this other Cold War with the Soviet Union, and so there was this thing of trying to prop Germany up and make Germany so much strong to be a bulwark against the Soviet Union. Yeah, you guys had a fuckfest. The United States kind of cleared this problem out because it just murdered everybody on the continent with the exception of Mexico and Canada. It's true. It's what it is. Is there a way to cooperate without actually having one fully organized body? And maybe that's your question. Like, have you guys matured enough as states where you can interact with one another without necessarily having conflict? Who the fuck knows? I don't know. But I don't know if Scotland is better served in the EU as opposed to being in the UK. I don't know. I mean, the question becomes who's going to be in the government in the UK and what are going to be the rules that the UK sets. The fact is, the UK may be limited in what it could set based upon its access to trying to access the markets. We don't know what plan they're going to come up with in order to access the markets. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. If Scotland is going to take a hit financially, I can understand why they would try to get into the single market. But I have to be honest, I'm fascinated by that dynamic, and I don't necessarily fully understand all the undercurrents, so I don't really want to say anything. At least I can't say anything thoughtful other than describing the way I understand the scenario. Scotland, Norway, Iceland pact. They don't control so much of their own destiny in a way. Bob Weiland, World War II was created and supported by the likes of Ford, Rockefeller, and others within their group. Well, they was trying to make money off of it, if I'm not mistaken. Putin's bank called the shots. Just ask Greece. Oh, Putin's bank. And that's the other part, man. It's like Greece. That would scare the shit out of me. Also, the euro is problematic. I mean, because think about it. You don't own your own currency. Like, this is not a situation where you guys are like kind of like states, but you're not really states. Like, in the United States, a state has to break even. But one of those states is not necessarily a country unto itself. Those states are subordinate to federal law. Monetary policy and everything else is held by federal law. Your cases are somewhat different because you guys are actual countries. You're full-on countries. Like, it's not the same thing as a state. That being said, being a full-on country, you've lost control of your monetary destiny, meaning you don't necessarily have the control to run deficits and surpluses in the same way that someone else could. The United States, if the United States needed to, could create $1 trillion coin and use that $1 trillion coin to pay down its entire debt, or pay down the debt. It can do that if it wanted to. Money isn't real. It creates the shit out of thin air. So it can do whatever it wants. Congress controls fiscal policy in this way. Now, they don't do this. They don't function in this way. But I'm just saying it's a sovereign currency. It can do whatever it wants with this currency. We can pay back. We can make as many dollars as we need to make. Those things aren't necessarily real. They're just print it, or at this point, just put on the computer screen. You can't do that. Like, one of the positive attributes that Britain kept was it kept the pound. The other countries, so Greece or France, you guys are using the euro. If anything happens, you can't run deficits in the same way. You don't own your own currency. I mean, part of the problems that these guys have in regards to the finances, it's just the way the euro is set up. So, I'm going to end this one. I had a bunch of other ones. I didn't want this one to go too long. I don't think it went too long. 37 minutes is not too bad. I have 1 or 2 more after this, so I will be back in almost like 5-10 minutes. And so I'm gonna call this one even. You're so informed, Jamal, man. You get it, Paul. Oh, thank you, Paul. I just like European politics. I think it's fascinating. I don't quite understand all the undercurrents of the stuff, but I've watched Scotland's parliament. I've heard the arguments because I was watching some of the clips from, I think it was Scottish Parliament, and they were making this point of calling for a referendum in order to leave the UK. And I remember they were throwing this threat around a few months ago, and it seems like they were getting more serious about this. And the Tories within the Scottish government was attacking, I guess, the SNP member or that particular party member, and trying to make this point of this is the only thing that she can think about. You know, she's trying to take us away from Britain, etc., etc., etc. So, I don't know. Like I said, it boils down to whether you believe your fate is better off in the EU or whether you believe your fate is better off with the UK. And what do you think the Tory government is going to do? When the Tory government is no longer stuck with dealing with European Union's custom rules. I mean, because it depends on what you guys do. You guys may say, okay, we need to stay part of the single market, in which case Britain has to still comport itself with the single market and the rules and regulations of the EU. But if they say fuck all, it's crapshoot. Nobody knows. I mean, Tories, if anything, if they're anything like conservatives, which they are, they're going to work in the interest of their corporate masters. So they're probably going to cut taxes. They're probably going to cut services. They're probably going to cut on or privatize, etc., etc., etc. Hope for Corbyn. Hope for Corbyn. I think with Corbyn you would have a different future. But again, it's hard to know. And also, are you going to be best served with Angela Merkel and with the German finance ministers as being essentially the people in charge of the finances of Scotland? I don't know, dog. I don't know, man. I don't know. I will leave that question for Scotland. I have no idea. All right, guys. I'm going to end this here. Yeah, Mark Blythe is awesome. Yeah, Mark Blythe is really good. Mark Blights is really, really good. He's Scottish economist. Alright guys, I'm gonna end this. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course you can always support through Patreon or Super Cash or PayPal. There's a few. Alright guys, thank you.